One of the most important modules, part of the strategic planning process, and one of the areas of the planning process with your team that you'll want to allow one of the most amounts of time for. So what we're going to talk about now is setting goals and KPIs. So KPIs being key performance indicators. So Peter Drucker famously said that what gets measured gets managed, and which means in English that your team and your people will focus on what they can actually measure and what they're measured against as on the things that they're actually going to achieve. So we go back to our strategic planning pyramid. We talked about the vision as to where your organization is going to be in the future, the ideal state that you're working towards. You have the mission as to the things that you're going to do to get there, who you do it for, and what makes you different or unique. And now we're going to get into the goals and measurements of your plan and your strategies and tactics. So as we've discussed before, it's important to pick a small number of goals that are broadly focused, that allow people to basically funnel their energy into one area. So I recommend 3 overarching strategies. Some organizations do 5 or more. As you see the attached sample strategic plan document, many organizations do 3 or 4, and that's what I would recommend. And again, just to reiterate, it's really to focus the energy of your organization and focus the energy of your people into something that's easy to communicate, easy to understand, and easy to execute on. Because there's no sense in creating a complicated strategic plan that people can't execute on versus creating something that's simple, easy to understand, and easy to move forward on. So it's really important to take into considerations where you want to be in the future. Again, figure out that mission and figure out your vision, and what are the overarching areas that are going to create the biggest impact on your organization as a whole. So what areas are going to create the biggest impact on your organization as a whole? And then also find areas that the organization as a whole can contribute to. So for example, can everybody contribute to customer service? I don't know what the answer is for your organization. Some yes, some no. But is improving customer service going to move you closer to your mission and vision being accomplished, or no? Entering new markets. That might be an area that will help you move closer to your mission or vision. Again, it really depends on where you're trying to go. So there's no one size fits all solution for this. And that's why it's really important to go with your team and say, okay, what are the things that we could do? And you'll probably end up brainstorming a list of maybe 10 or 15 strategic priorities that you want to focus on, and then basically distill that into a smaller handful to say, okay, well, what is most important? Maybe it's creating partnerships. Maybe it's just increasing revenue. That's probably it for a lot of people. But what does increasing revenue mean, and in what areas? Maybe if you're a technology company, it could be moving closer to a consumer platform versus an enterprise platform. Or it could be getting more government contracts, focusing more on public outreach and PR. So again, find a handful of items that you will that will polarize your team, that everybody on the team could say, okay, this is really what we need to focus on in order to move forward on our goals. So again, that's very broad right now. Do check the attached document for sample goal statements, and then we'll move on from there. So the next piece, once you've figured out where the priority areas are for your organization, what goals you want to focus on, next you need to figure out how you're going to measure them. So the way we do that is going from X, which is your current state, to Y, which is your future state, by date. Okay? So the tricky part about this is that depending on your objective, the key performance indicator, the measurement, could change drastically. So let's say we'll take revenue as we want to increase revenue as a strategic planning priority. So your X to Y could be total revenue, okay? It could also mean revenue by customer. So each individual customer spends this, and we want to increase it from here to here. It could be increasing the amount of sales per transaction. So let's say you have somebody who buys, once a month, once a week, once every few months, and you want to move their total sale from $100 to $200. Okay? Maybe it's actually taking that same customer, and instead of getting them to buy 2 times a year, you're going to get them to buy 4 times or 5 times per year. So maybe keeping the amount of money that they're going to spend the same, but increasing the velocity at which they come back and buy from you. So all of those measurements all fall under increasing revenue, but they all have a different measurement attached to it. And what comes out of that is that they're all going to have different tactics that go into it. So again, going back to what gets measured, it gets managed. If you're measuring total revenue, then everybody's going to focus on adding total revenue in whatever way. However, if you're focused on increasing total revenue per customer transaction, then your employees, your people, are going to focus on adding more value, adding more sales on that transaction every time, which might mean things like upselling. So for example, McDonald's, their strategic planning priority back in the day was how can we increase the total till number per transaction. So the tactic that they actually implemented was upselling. In other words, would you like fries with that? Just by adding, would you like fries with that, they were able to increase the bill by 20 or 25% just by asking that one thing. If you work in a restaurant, for example, same theory applies. Oh, would you like to make that a single or a double? Oh, would you like any appetizer or dessert? So yes, we might want to get to that total revenue number, but then there's a few ways that we can do it and break it down in a way that's more easy to understand. When you say, let's increase top line revenue, there's a dozen ways that you could do that. Versus, okay, let's increase our per transaction item number, and then there's less ways to do that, which means it's easier for your team to understand and focus on. If we took that same methodology and applied it to software, then you're saying, let's increase the amount of money that we get per user per transaction. So it might lead your development team or your web team to say, okay, how do we do upsell, cross-sells, and downsells to these people? So instead of just buying a website theme, or instead of getting a subscription, that they add extra support and service, or they add a complimentary product, or they add a white paper onto what we're doing. So that's just one example of how increasing revenue as a goal could be measured in multiple different ways. And then once you figure out what that measurement is, then you need to add different lines to that. So let's pick another strategic priority. And let's say we'll talk about that increased customer satisfaction. Okay? So how are you going to measure increasing customer satisfaction? Now there's a few ways. You could do a survey, just a normal survey. You could do a net promoter score. You could do what people are saying, your just overall sentiment on the internet. You could measure it by reviews of your product online. You could do it a dozen different ways. And then the way that you choose to get your feedback in that loop, how you're going to measure your customer satisfaction, is going to affect what you do in these areas. So if you're saying, okay, we want to increase our customer satisfaction or our perception online, then that might mean that you're going to move your people to filling out surveys online. You might look at Net Promoter Score as one, and then based on the feedback of your current Net Promoter Score, then you're going to go back and ask your customers saying, what would make you refer our organization, our company, to your friends and family? What would make your experience better? So yes, customer satisfaction is one, but depending on how you're measuring it, you're going to do different tactics to move the needle on what you're trying to achieve. So that's just 2 examples. You can definitely check the example strategic plans that we have for strategic objectives that people use, and other measurement examples in the attached document to give yourself some ideas on how you can measure your success and how important it is to understand that what gets measured gets managed. So it's appropriate or important to pick the right KPI, the right measurement, that attaches to your goal. And again, keeping in mind that all of those things have to be in line with your mission and vision, and that your goals and objectives have to be implementable by the whole organization so that everybody knows how they're contributing to the success of your organization moving forward. So I hope that helps you set better goals and KPIs. Please do check the attached documents to help you in your brainstorming and planning process. And I really look forward to sharing with you in the next video. Take care.